You like you, winner.
I just thought it was Give Me the Meatball.
And one of your next acting roles was in a movie called Battle for the Planet of the Apes.
Andy written songs like We've Only Just Begun, an old-fashioned love song, and he's a little strange at times.
This is a kid.
Midnight Special, which I guess follows our show tonight on NBC, does it not? So would you welcome, please, Paul Williams.
Maybe I should have said those leftover dreams. Funny, but here's that rain. That rainy day they told me about, and I laughed at the thought that it might turn out this way. Where is that one that I threw aside after it brought my love so near? And it's funny how love becomes a cold rainy day. Funny, that rainy day is here.
Sidestep there.
Virgil.
Does it go on?
It does. Do you want to watch it?
Yeah, because there's a line that I'm very proud of. On the top of my head when he asked me about what it's for. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's great.
And he's a great laugher.
Paul Williams is with us tonight.
Never mind. I'll just tell you because it's when I didn't want to listen to it again. So I go over there and he said, "This is for a movie." I said, "No, this is nothing but 7 months of nothing but banana daiquiris." He was the best laugher. He was the best host. I mean, I did 48 Tonight shows. I remember 6.
Wow.
They were really interesting times. And my best friend was Pat McCormick, the great guy that played my dad in Smokey and the Bandit. And he wrote most of the monologues for Johnny. So I was hanging, when I wasn't on the show, I was underfoot, kind of hanging around there and all. And that's actually how Bert put us together for Smokey and the Bandit.
So, why did Johnny have you on so many times?
Oh, because, I think I think everything that scared his producer, Johnny enjoyed. I never edited what I said, and I was always kind of, not drunk, but just, moderately lit. It's funny, my wife Mariana recalled when I first met her, she said she thought it was an interesting moment on The Tonight Show when you described yourself as a combination of Donny Osmond and Oscar Levant. And if most of you aren't going to be old enough to know who Oscar Levant was, but he was a drug-addled, brilliant piano player who was best friends with George Gershwin. Anyway, I think Johnny, there was a young actress who was on the show when I was there, one of the first shows, and she was talking about she went home and helped her family clean up the entire place. We have a big place in Bar Harbor, Maine, and blah, blah, like that and everything. And I said, and her family's in the amphetamine business. And the producer of the show was like, oh no. And we got along well. And one of the tricks with Johnny was he never wanted to talk to you before you came out for the show. In other words, I go into makeup, he's in makeup, we just wave, you don't talk to Johnny until you're out there. So it's real, it's legit. You say, how you been, what you been doing, trying to make it till Thursday. Everybody else says, well, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing that. I say I'm trying to make it till Thursday. He responds to, again, authenticity. I think when you're willing to be yourself, people, I mean, you don't get the, I hope that, I was here last night. I walked out and I said, and I was wearing a suit and a tie, a jacket and a tie. And I said to the audience, I don't know if any of you are here, but I said, there's a lot of information in the way I dress. If I come out in Levi's and a torn Levi's and a hoodie, I know exactly what I want to say and I'm completely comfortable. If I come out and I've got a tie on, I probably have no idea what the hell I'm going to say and I'm just winging it. But that, in a way, that's the best for me. You get me at my best if I'm just winging it. If I can just be right. There's a guy in recovery who used to go there like this. You go, you know what? The greatest treasure you have is now. There. Were you there for that? Or did you miss it? Wait a minute, what were you thinking about? That's now, right there. So, in 33 years of recovery, what I have begun to trust is my now. By being right here with you and sitting here next to Jesse, I can experience what you guys are experiencing. I can give you who I honestly am, and I can hear you. And I love the questions and the comments. I go and I do like Comic Cons, and incidentally, every penny goes to recovery for rehab and sober living and all. I don't take a penny of it home. But what I get is the stories. I get to talk to people about. My mom was a single mom, and she loved you and me against the world. Or like this is my daughter. She can play the Rainbow Connection, and that's gold for me. That's a heart payment. End of pitch.
Let me get serious here for a moment. Talk about how your fame affected you. You had a saying that to be different is difficult, but
Yeah, to be famous, to be different is hard. To be famous is dangerous. I became better at showing off than showing up. I mean, when I started writing, I was writing off from the center of my chest and all, and I started. It was the '70s, the late '60s and the '70s. So I was drinking a little. It turned out that they said cocaine was not addictive, but it turns out I was. And alcohol made me feel big enough to deal with the rest of the world. Cocaine made me feel like I could shoot basketball for money. There's a tipping point where you go from confidence to thinking you can do almost anything. So you say yes and you try it, and by God, sometimes it works. But you go from confidence to arrogance, and I went from arrogance. And if you watch the Paul Williams Still Alive documentary, there's a scene in there where I'm hosting Merv Griffin, and I have a tough time watching it because I am this dead-eyed little ass who is just arrogant, and she's just so sharp and so wonderful. And I'm joking about screwing around on the road, and my kids are going to see that. It's hard for me to watch. Granted, I didn't have any kids at that time, but I had a wife and a beautiful wife. So I'm not proud of the way I behaved. I'm really open about my recovery. I do not mention by name the organization that helped me get sober because we have traditions around that, and I try to always honor those traditions. But if you want to find out who saved my life, go to the front of your phone book and you'll find the organization. They are saving lives even as we speak at this moment, including mine. And if there are any friends of Bill in the audience, I'd be willing to bet there are a few, and maybe thank you. My brethren, my tribe, saved my life, thank you.
was there a certain event or something that made you become sober?
Oh yeah, and it was, I did rehab twice. The first time I did it because I didn't want the little girl I was living with. I left my wife and the kids for a 22-year-old psych major who was brave enough to say to me, I can't, I love you too much to watch you die, I'm leaving. I was just thinking of going to rehab. Wow. I wasn't. And so I went to a place called Shadle where they did aversion therapy. It didn't work. I had no program, I had no higher power, I had no design for living, I just had willpower. My willpower got me very drunk in Jamaica. Went to Jamaica, very quick story, went to Jamaica, I hadn't had a drink in 7 months. And I go there to work on a project, staying at a beautiful home in Ocho Rios with a pool. I stay up all night working on the project? No, trying to write a hit song. Because I know if I get one more hit, I'm gonna make it back to the top of the game. So I stay up all night writing this song, and I get up about 1 in the afternoon. I go out by the pool, and I've got it on my tape recorder. I have got what I know is gonna make me a star again. And I listen to it. I took my places on. Wait a minute. Oh, wait, hold on a second. Let's see. I took my place beside you, girl. I don't remember the words, but I remember the melody because I'm sitting there and I listened to the song. I took my place beside you, and I realized I have rewritten "O Little Town of Bethlehem." Oh, Jesus. I mean, Jesus.
This is really drunk.
I don't want to steal from the big amigo. And at that exact moment, a guy comes over with a tray with the rum, and he says, "Do you want to have one rum and coke?" And I'm like, "A light one, I'll be fine with it." I had one light rum and coke, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I had one light rum and coke, 2 o'clock in the morning. I was at Bob Marley's grave explaining reggae to a lot of black people I didn't know. I was lying through my teeth because that's what I was like when I drank. I felt like I was supposed to know the answer to everything and all. What happened to me, to finally answer your question, is that I came back, the little girl left, I drank for another years in 1989, and my sobriety date is March 15th, 1990, but in 1989, I went to Oklahoma to do a concert, and I'd been up probably 2 or 3 days and nights with maybe a couple hours sleep in there somewhere, doing vodka and cocaine, the staff of life. And it was an afternoon gig, and the promoter came to get me. And we were walking down the hall, and the way he describes it is he said it was as if some invisible force picked you up and threw you against the wall. And for 45 minutes I was tortured. I had a complete psychotic meltdown. I was tortured by a monster nobody could see but me. I was thrown down escalator stairs. Found out later there's no escalator in that building, that I was imagining the steps were moving. Wow. In the car. He drove me over to turn me over to my band. They canceled the gig, of course, for that day. And my band, in the right over, looking at the side view mirror, I could see a little monster like myself, twisting my ears, biting my neck. I was nuts. So I did the gig the next day. I told the audience I'd had a reaction to my meds, which was the truth, because I was medicating. That's how I was dealing with life. I go back to LA, I drink. On the plane, I score drugs when I get in the ground, and a week later, in a blackout, I call a doctor. I call a doctor, and I said, on a Friday night, loaded, blacked out, I said, I want to go to treatment. He called me the next morning, and he said, I found a place for you. I said, what are you talking about? He said, you called me last night and said you wanted to get sober. I said, somebody's been using my body again, and he did not laugh. He said, well, last night you said you didn't want to drive drunk with your kids in the car anymore, like your dad did. And I heard something, and I felt something I had not felt before. And I felt shame, and I felt helpless, and I went to rehab. Now, I loved it. Once I woke up and the cravings were gone, it was spectacular. Here's the tag on the story, and I tell this every time I speak about recovery. All I wanted to do was be around recovery. All I wanted to do was work at recovery. I went to UCLA and I got my certification as a drug and alcohol counselor. I entered what I call the polylama period of my life. I just loved it. 10 years sober. I'm back making some music. At first I kind of stepped away from it. I said, you know what? I don't have that passion. If it comes back, I'll start writing again. But for now, I'm okay. I just want to be sober and be around that world. So 10 years sober, I'm back writing songs. I go to Nashville, and while I'm there, the guys that are, that I go to meetings there as well, and the guys that go to meetings say, would you go speak at the jail? So I go speak at the jail. And when I come out of there, I'm like, oh my God, I'm feeling like the word, I come touch the hem, I will strike you sober. I'm just feeling so good about myself. I go back to the hotel. I walk through a lobby that is packed with guys with badges on. And they're all 6 feet whatever with huge, longhorn belt buckles, dangerous. If I get hugged, I'm going to have an impression on my forehead. So I make my way through this crowd. I go up in my room, and I'm feeling like this combination of Jiminy Cricket and Gandhi, So I go to my hotel room, and the magnetic key, for the third night in a row, the magnetic key does not work. So 3 nights in a row, I have to go back and go through that crowd and go out. And you know what? It's a quick trip from Gandhi to Himmler for me. I'm just like, grumble, like, oh, I'm making my way through the crowd. I walk up to the kid behind the counter, and I'm nice. I've learned restraint of pen and tongue. And I say, you know what? I know it's not your fault, but why should I have to go through this crowd 3 nights in a row to get a key, and there's a tap on my shoulder? And I turn around, and there's a guy standing there. His name is Gary. He's from Oklahoma City. He said, I don't want to bother you, but I just wanted to say hi. I booked you 10 years ago, and we're a convention of talent buyers. We book performing arts centers and rodeos and, and jazz clubs and all that, but I booked you 10 years ago, and I was like, oh my God. Were you the guy when I had my Linda Blair and the Exorcist thing, lick me, my head was spinning around. I said, yeah, that was me. And I was like, well, I'm 10 years sober, and I just spoke at the jail at UCLA, and blah, blah, Paulie this, blah, blah, Paulie that. I was on a rage telling him how wonderful I was, and he said, yeah, I heard in the rooms that you were sober. And I went, the rooms? Are you a friend of Bill? And he reached in his pocket and he pulled out a coin for 17 years. And I did the math and I went, oh my God, you were 7 years sober when that happened. He said, that's right. And I said, oh, I was bad, wasn't I? He said, well, I had an audience expecting to hear, the man that wrote those wonderful songs. And I got somebody that I thought was dying, somebody that was out of their mind. What he didn't say was, you left me holding the bag. What he said was how concerned he was. I said, what did you do? He said, I called my sponsor. Yeah, of course you did. What did your sponsor do? He said, he hung up on me. I went, he hung up on you? Why? He said, so he could start making calls, and I could too. And he said, we started calling alcoholics in Oklahoma City, and we put together a prayer circle that you would get sober in or out of the rooms. And a week later, in a blackout, I called a doctor and I said that I wanted to get sober. There is not a man in this audience or a group of people in this audience that are powerful enough to separate me from the belief that those prayers are a part of my getting sober. I am in a program where I have a God of my understanding? No. I have a God that is too big for my understanding, but I don't understand electricity either. But I use it. I flip a switch. I am here today because people prayed for me. And I'm